Hello, my crafty friends. I sure hope you're having a fabulous day. My name is Robyn Pitts with Sir Chauncey Rocco Creative Designs. Hopefully, you had a chance to see my video from yesterday where I did an in-depth review of my trifold triple waterfall mini album. I created this as a design team project for ASC Craft Supplies, and I used a beautiful paper collection by Stamperia called Winter Tales. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through step by step on how to make this project. Before we get started, I encourage you to watch the video through the end and then grab your crafting materials so that we can make this together. So let's get started. I've gathered the materials to make our trifold triple waterfall mini album. First, we are going to start with the chipboard pieces and the cardstock, and as we develop the mini album, I will tell you the dimensions for the decorative paper. So let's begin. You'll need 2 pieces of chipboard that measure 1.5 by 7.5, and I'm just using a medium weight chipboard. This is by Grafix. I'll include the link in the description box below. You'll need 1 piece that measures 7.25 by 7.5, and you'll need 2 pieces that measure 7 3/8 by 7.5. For the cardstock, you will need 2 pieces that measure 2.5 by 7 3/8, and this is to cover the spine. You'll need 6 pieces that measure 5 by 1.25, and these are going to be the flaps or the hinges to the waterfall, and we're going to be gluing these pieces together, and they'll have magnets in between. So you'll need 6 pieces of that. You'll need 1 piece that measures 8.25 by 8.25, 1 piece that measures 7 3/4 and 7 3/4. You'll need 2 pieces that measure 12 by 8.5, plus 1 piece that measures 3 3/4 by 8.5. Now, the reason I have these 3 pieces together like this is that we're going to be joining them together, and this will form the outside cover of our mini album. And last but not least, you will need 18 pieces that measure 6.5 by 5. Let me just show you what this looks like. These are going to be our waterfall pieces, and this is going to be scored on the long side at 1/2 inch to create a little hinge. Before you start cutting the pieces for your waterfall flaps, I want to show you how you can maximize the number of pieces from one 12 by 12 sheet. Typically, you would cut 6.5 by 5 inches. Now, if you do that, you're only going to be able to get 3 pieces of the waterfall pages on one sheet. However, a helpful tip that I've learned from Annette Green is to do the following. You want to cut your paper down to 11.5 on 2 sides. So I'm doing it on the side. You want to turn the paper around and cut at 11.5. So you'll have a piece that measures 11.5 by 11.5. Then you want to measure at 6.5. You want to use the vertical ruler on your cutting board, and you want to go down to 5 inches. Then you want to turn your paper around, just like so. You want to measure it right up against the 5. Because 5 plus 6.5 equal 11.5, and then you're going to come up from the bottom right up to that area that you cut. So you'll have your first 6.5 by 5 piece, so you can put that aside. Now I'm going to turn the paper around 1/4 side. I'm going to line it up to 5 inches again. So this is what your paper will look like. And I'm going to cut. And now we have our second 6.5 by 5 inch piece. Now we're going to give it another 1/4 turn. We're going to line it up next to the 5 inch. We're going to cut. We have our third 6.5 by 5 inch piece. And then we're going to turn it around 1/4, line it up to the 5, and you should just have a little tiny flap that you're cutting off, this little piece. And that is how you get 4 6.5 by 5 inch pieces. So go ahead and cut out all your flaps, and while you're at it, score at 1/2 inch along the top to create the hinge. Next, you want to grab your 3 pieces of paper, the 2 pieces that measure 12 by 8.5 and the 1 piece that measures 3 3/4 by 8.5. So I have them here. And we're going to attach these pieces. So to save time, I've already added score tape along the sides of both of the long papers. Now, you're going to put the score tape on the inside. I'm using textured paper, so I'm putting it on the inside, which is the smoother texture. As you can see here, this is the actual textured side that I want to be on the outside. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove this score tape, and then we're going to attach this second sheet just along the score tape, just like that. So the score tape that I'm using is 1/2 inch. So go ahead and let's do that now. I'm going to remove the score tape. You want to make sure your top and bottom is aligned. Go ahead and burnish that. Then you want to move your paper over. Because we have 3 folds to our mini album, we'll need to attach another piece of paper. And so I've already attached the score tape here. This is the remaining piece that we need. Again, I'm going to make sure that I have the smooth side in. I'm just going to remove the score tape. And if you have any extra score tape pieces hanging over, you want to make sure you fold that inside. And again, I'm going to line this up right to the top. Okay, just like so, and then give it a nice burnish. So you should have 3 pieces that are attached just like so. Now that we have our pieces attached, I have gone ahead and added score lines around the perimeter of the paper. So I've created a 1/2 inch score line on the top, the side, and the bottom. And you can either do a score line or just add a light pencil mark. This just allows you to add the chipboard more easily. So you want to grab the 2 pieces of chipboard that measure 7 3/8 by 7.5, and our book is going to be 7.5 inches from top to bottom. So you want to line your first piece up right in the crosshairs of the score marks that we just made. Then you want to grab your 2 spines that measure 1.5 by 7.5 inches, and that's going to fit right next to it. Now, a trick that I have is that I've created these chipboard spacers. This is just 2 pieces of chipboard glued together, and so that helps me determine the spacing in between my chipboard book. So I can just line it up just like so, and that'll give me the amount of space that I need, which should be almost 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so that comes handy when you're actually gluing it down. Right now I'm just doing a placement. Then you want to get your next piece that's 7 3/8 by 7.5. You want to make sure you have the right side. Okay, let's scooch this over. We're going to add our next spine. Okay, you want to make sure you have 1/8 inch space. And then you're going to grab your last piece, which is the shorter piece that measures 7 1/4 by 7.5. And then we're going to add the last piece here, and you have a little bit more than an inch left over. Okay, so now that we have our chipboard placed, I'm going to go ahead and take off the score tape and add a little bit of liquid glue so that I could get this in place, and then I'll be back. So you can go ahead and glue on these places. Make sure that you do leave about a 1/8 inch space in between each of these spines. Okay, so go ahead and do that now. I have glued down each of the chipboard panels. You want to make sure that the shorter chipboard piece, the 7 1/4 piece, is on the right side. I then went ahead and I added score tape on the 1/2 inch here on the top of the chipboard, and I glued it on the perimeter of the cover. This is 3/8 inch tape. I then scored all around the book and definitely in between the spines here. And you want to gently fold this up, just like so. Then I mitered the edges. As you can see here, I have these diagonal lines. So I mitered the corners, leaving just about a 1/8 inch space between the chipboard and the edge of the paper, and I did that on all 4 sides. Before we glue down these edges, I want to grab these spine pieces, and remember we have 2 pieces that are 2.5 by 7 3/8. I've already added score tape to the back of it. These are going to be centered right over these chipboard spines here. So when you attach it, you want to attach it to the top of the chipboard and make sure that it is centered. Okay, and you want to do that on both sides. So there should be an even amount of space on the left and on the right. Now, I've added an extra piece of score tape on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to take this piece off and take the bottom piece off, and then I will attach these pieces. So I've glued down my spines and I have scored in between the chipboard pieces. You want to make sure that you don't score too hard because you don't want the paper to rip, which has happened here. That's okay because we're going to cover it up. So I've done it on this side and this side. And now I'm going to remove the tape on the sides. And before I do that, I just want to take my bone folder and I'm just going to burnish in these sides. I'm going to take off the score tape and then I'm just going to fold this piece in just like so. Okay, and give that a nice burnish. And I'm going to do that on this side as well. I have taken the score tape off on the top. Before I fold this piece down, you will have to take your finger and bend in the little corner piece on all 4 sides. I've done that here and here, and that'll give you a nice clean edge. So I'm going to fold this down now, just like so. Just take your time. And you want to make sure that you burnish it well. And then you want to repeat the same thing on the bottom. Now that we have our spines attached, we can put our book to the side. And you want to grab the piece that measures 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. Now, originally I told you you only needed 1 sheet of the 8 1/4 and 1 sheet of the piece that measures 7 3/4. Because we're going to have 2 pockets, you'll actually need 2 sets of each. But let's focus on the 8 1/4 first. So you are going to score at a 1/2 inch on all 4 sides, as I've done here. And I've mitered the edges with a very slight angle, okay, on all 4 corners. So you want to make sure on both pieces you mark what piece is going to be the top, because this will help you place your score tape. So let me flatten this out to give you a better view. We're going to have score tape on the outer right and the bottom. We're going to flip this over, and we're going to have score tape on the top and the right. Okay, so we can flip this back over. Okay, and again, top should be at the top. The first thing we want to do is turn this piece over, and we are going to take the score tape off and fold this piece down. This is going to give us a nice smooth edge for our pocket, so when we're inserting the tab, it won't get caught on anything. Okay, so let's do that for both pieces. Now you want to gather your 2 pieces that are 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. And just like the 8 1/4 piece, we're going to designate a top and a bottom. On the 7 3/4 pieces, you want to score a 1/2 inch on the top and a 1/2 inch on the side. We're going to put score tape on the right side on both pieces, and we're going to flip this over. And we're going to put score tape on the inside flap. So this is just like what we did for the 8 1/4 piece. While we're on the back, we can take the score tape off and fold this hinge down. Before we do that, I just wanted to let you know that I did cut on these pieces, a small angle here and a small angle here. Okay, so again, you can go in, take this score tape off, and then fold this tab down and give it a nice burnish. So we have our two pieces. This is our smaller piece, the 7 3/4 by 7 3/4, the 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. Remember, for the smaller piece, we put adhesive along this panel here, and we had score tape here, but we folded it down to create a nice smooth edge. And again, this is the larger piece. This is our flap that will go into the book. We have adhesive here and here. Here, we glued the top panel down to create a nice smooth edge, and we have score tape on our little hinge here. Before we glue these pieces down, we need to create our little notch. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create the notch on the 7 3/4 piece first. So I'm just going to fold this in and then measure half of that, which is 3 5/8. I'm going to use my envelope punch board to create a little notch. You could use either your envelope punch board, or you could use a little punch. This is a 2-inch punch, but I want to use a little notch instead. This measures 7 1/4 inches. I'm going to put this in my envelope punch board. I'm going to move this over to the 3 5/8 inch mark, because that is half of 7 1/4. And I'm going to punch. Okay, and so there's our little punch right there. And then I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to fold in the tabs, move this over to the 3 5/8 inch mark, and punch. So now our notches line up perfectly. So I'm going to do this on both sets of papers. Now that we've created our notches on both the front and the back, and we've done that for both sets, we're going to turn this page over. This is the 8 1/4 piece. We're going to fold these strips down. This smaller piece is going to fit right on top, just like so. So I'm going to remove the score tape. I'm going to remove the score tape on this piece here. Okay, you want to try to be as steady as you can. I'm going to start here at the bottom corner, line it up, and there we go. We have our first pocket. I'm going to go ahead and burnish these pages. So this is our first page, and we have our hinge here. Okay, so I'm going to do this for the second page. So I've removed the score tape on the top and bottom, and I've removed the score tape along the smaller side here. I'm going to fold in these two pieces, align it at the bottom corner. Okay, and then press down the bottom and this inner tab. And we have our second pocket page. Now that we have our pocket pages complete, it's time to attach it to the base of the book. Now for the spines, I have made a little score mark right in the middle. So the spines measure 1.5 inches, and half of that is 3/4 of an inch. So I've done that on both sides. I'm going to take my first page. This is where I have the score tape. We're going to put this area here that has a score mark, not the edge, right on this line that we made, which is 3/4. So that's going to be attached just like so. Okay, and you want to make sure it's even on the top and the bottom. You'll have just about 1/8 inch on the top and 1/8 inch on the bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to attach this just like so. So I'll take off the score tape now. Then attach your hinge, and you want to burnish it. So now we have the second page, And I'm going to turn this over. So we've got the score tape on this side, and we have our 3/4 inch mark right in the middle of the spine. And just like we did on the left side, we're going to line this up right onto the score mark, and we are going to glue it down. You want to make sure that these pages are even on the top and the bottom. So now we have our 2 pocket pages inserted. Let's close this up. And it closes perfectly. Now that we have our pocket pages glued down, we're going to start working on our waterfall pages as well as our closures. So I'm going to set this aside and gather my waterfalls. And remember, we cut 18 pieces that were 6.5 by 5, and we scored along the long side, and you're going to put score tape on this 1/2 inch hinge. Then grab your closures, and these are 6 pieces that are cut out at 5 by 1 1/4 inches. And I did use my corner rounder, this tool here, to create a slight curve on all of the tabs. And so you're going to divide these into sets of 2. So you have 3 sets because we have 3 sets of waterfalls. So for the flaps or the closures, I've already assembled 2 of them. So I've glued 2 pieces together, and on the inside is a small magnet, which you can probably see right here. And then I scored at 1/2 inch, and I put the opposite magnet on the outside, so I know which way to attach the closure. So I've done that for 2 of them. And then we have this last piece together. Again, the corners are rounded. I've taken a small magnet. The magnets that I'm using are the basic gray. These are the mini magnets. I'm going to put a little bit of score tape over this magnet just to hold it in place. I'm going to peel off the score tape. I'm going to glue these together. Once I glue them together, I'm going to score this at 1/2 inch. And then I'll put another magnet, the opposite magnet, on the opposite side. So go ahead and do that now. Now that we have our flaps created, we want to attach them to the book. Now I'm going to put this midway on each of the pages. So these pages measure 7.5 inches tall, and the halfway mark is 3 3/4. So I've made a tick mark here. I've made a tick mark in the middle. We're going to put a flap right here that's 3 3/4, and then we're also going to put a flap on this side. And when you attach these, you want to put it as close to the edge of the chipboard piece as possible without going over the score line. So on this first page, again, I've measured down to 3 3/4. I'm going to put this right next to the edge and burnish. And you want to do that for all 3 pieces. So we have all of our flaps attached. Now we can begin adding in our decorative pages. I've added on most of the decorative pages in our mini album. When we last left, I attached the waterfall closures. Let me give you the measurement of the decorative paper for that. The waterfall closure measures 1 inch by 4 1/4 inch. I did cover it on the outside and the inside as well. And as you remember, we glued 2 pieces of cardstock together, and in between there was a magnet. And then there's also a magnet on the opposite side. I'll show you that in a moment. Before you add your waterfall pages, you need to add the back cover. And this piece measures 7 1/8 by 7 1/4, and that is also the case for this back page here. And I've decided to only include 1 mat because we are including the waterfalls. Then I've added in the waterfalls, and to add the waterfalls is very simple. You simply take the 1/2 inch spine that you have attached, and that's going to be added on right to the very edge of the book. Now I measured halfway in between the page, and then the second waterfall I simply attached right adjacent to the waterfall before it. And so I've done that for each of the pages. On this first waterfall, I added in a white cardstock as a border, and then I added in this blue decorative page, and I'll give you the measurements of each. But before I glued on this decorative panel here, and this is one of the card parts from Stamperia, I added in the magnet. That magnet attaches to this hinge, so that's how each of the waterfalls close. The first mat, the white part, is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. The decorative blue mat is 4 by 6. And then this cut apart measures 3 1/2 by 5 1/2 inches. However, this may differ depending on what cut apart you're using. You may have something that measures 4 by 6, 3 by 4. It really depends on what paper line you're using. So on the back, I've left it blank, and then I've alternated each of the decorative pages with plain white. Here we have another decorative page here with a cut apart, white, and then we have another decorative cut apart, and on this page I left it white. And on the back here, I left it blank so that you could either include a photo or you can include an envelope or a little pocket. I'm going to show you how to make a little pocket in a moment. So this is the first completed waterfall. Now I've repeated that same step for the center waterfall, and then each of these have a same mat structure. Okay, and I've left each of the backs blank. Here again, I've left blank. You can use it as a photo area or include an envelope or a pocket. Now, one thing I did want to point out are these waterfall spines. These measure 3/8 of an inch by 6 1/4, and I think that just adds a nice finishing touch to each of the pages. And then let's look at our third waterfall. Is right under here. We have a beautiful cut apart here. We have our plain white mat, a decorative cut apart, and another decorative cut apart. And again, another area for a photo or a pocket. Next, the measurement of the 2 pocket pages that we have here. You're going to cut 4 pieces that measure 6 7/8 by 6 7/8, and that will be for the front and back of each of these pages. And the decorative page will be 6 5/8 by 6 5/8. And then you want to make sure you cut the notch on the top just like you did for the pocket. For the spines on either side of our pages, here as well as here and here, you will need to cut 4 decorative pieces of paper that measure 5 1/8 by 7 1/4. For the third inside panel, this page here, now remember, this side is slightly smaller than this panel and this panel because we needed to close properly. This page measures 7 by 7 1/4. Okay, so let's look at this outside panel here. This back page here does have a double mat, and the first mat is 7 1/8 by 7 1/4, and the decorative paper is 6 7/8 by 7 inches. And on this page, we're going to include a pocket that looks like this. It has 3 areas for pockets, and it's stitched. It has tabs on either side and then on the bottom, and that's just going to be attached just like so. Let me show you the die set. This is the die set. I purchased this on Amazon, and it has this one main piece and this added die for the decorative pages. This is called the Stitch Slots Pocket Set, and I've included the Amazon link in the description box below. So to attach this, we're simply going to take off the score tape, and we're going to put it in the center of the page. I'm just going to eyeball this. Use your bone folder to get a nice burnish. And then I'm going to decorate this page offline. Now let's take a look at the outside spine. I have double matted this. Because there are 2 spines, you will need 2 pieces of the first mat, which measure 1 3/8 by 7 1/4, and the decorative paper is 1 1/8 by 7. So you'll need a spine on this side as well as a spine on this side. Next, let's take a look at the back cover. Now the back and front cover have the same measurements, and I did do a double border, and this is 7 1/8 by 7 1/4 for the first mat, and the decorative mat is 6 7/8 by 7. I've also added in this beautiful satin ribbon, and I'll show you how to add that in on the front cover. So let's turn this over. I've taken this beautiful satin ribbon. This is 1.5 inches in width, and I've measured half of the cover, and then I added score tape here and then added the ribbon to it. Now you'll need 2 pieces of ribbon that measures 16 inches each, and that'll give you enough space to create a decorative bow. So go ahead and add your score tape here, measure half of the cover, which is 3 3/4. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and add on your decorative mat. And once again, this mat is the same size as the back cover. This measures 7 1/8 by 7 1/4 for the first mat, and the decorative mat is 6 7/8 by 7. I'm going to add this cover on and finish decorating the book, and then I will be back with the final reveal. This is my completed trifold triple waterfall mini album, and I love the way it turned out. I have added in this beautiful painted jute and this gorgeous floral spray on the side. On the flowers, I added in the folk art glitterific in hologram to add some sparkle. We've got these beautiful blue flowers, and they're tipped with gold sparkle. We also have these blue and white stamens. Now I did do a speckled paint technique. I just mixed diluted paint, and you can see these speckles ever so slightly on the front cover. Let's take a look at those pockets that I created. Now you've seen the 3-tiered pocket here, and you've seen the waterfalls. Let me flip to the back. I added in 2 half pockets, and I want to give you the measurements for these because I added these in at the last minute. To make this pocket, the black cardstock measures 3 by 7 1/2. So you'll need 2 pieces, one for the front and one for the back. You're going to score at 1/2 inch on all 3 sides. You're going to leave this open because this is where our insert pocket will be. And then you're going to miter the corners on the left and the right. For the first mat, which is white, this is 2 1/4 by 6 1/4, and for the decorative mat, this is 2 by 6. And I simply cut some large cut aparts from the 12 by 12 collection. You can also put photos on the back of these if you like, or a little envelope. So we have the pocket here, and we also have the pocket on the right panel. And we have more cut aparts. In the center waterfall, I did leave this area blank because I am going to add in another photo on the back. This concludes my review of my triple trifold waterfall mini album. Hopefully I've inspired you with new and creative ideas. If you like this video, please take a moment to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Please be sure to return to my channel tomorrow to see other fun projects that I've created using these scraps from the Stamperia Winter Tales collection. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now, and happy crafting.